If you're looking to become a psychologist, then let this be your guide. With this podcast at your side, you'll be on your way to being qualified. It's the Aspiring Psychologist Podcast with Dr. Marianne Trent.
Hi, welcome along to the Aspiring Psychologist Podcast. I am Dr. Marianne Trent and I'm a qualified clinical psychologist. Now, if you are a regular listener or watcher, you might notice that A, the sound doesn't sound quite as good as it usually does, and B, if you are watching on YouTube, you might notice that I'm in a different location. Guilty as charged on both counts, and actually I'm probably doing the opposite of what I'm going to tell you to do in this episode. So this episode is all about living your best life as an aspiring psychologist or a mental health professional, because it's really important that we do in order to help us to manage the ebb and flow and the hustle and bustle and the kind of take nature that our jobs can feel like. So I am on tour currently. I am on holiday. It's October half term and I am, I'd say, living some of my best life here, really. So where is here exactly? And if you're on YouTube, shall I show you where here is? So if you're listening, and even if you're watching, what I'm doing is I'm showing you the estuary view from this window, from the office window, which is just wonderful. I will level with you that this is the second time I've recorded this podcast episode. So for some reason, the microphone wasn't working, and when I came to edit it, it had no sound. And a podcast with no sound is many things, but it's not a podcast. And unless you're really good at lip reading, you're not going to get very much from that at all. So when I was recording it earlier, there was a windsurfer out there distracting me in the most joyful of ways. A slightly less joyful distraction is that in the house next door they're having a refurb, and so if you can hear banging and clanging, that is what that is. So yes, why am I doing the episode today? So the episode kind of came to me because I just had a great day yesterday, really great, and I was just out and about on a kayak with my husband in the afternoon. So a really lovely time. It was a beautifully sunny day, and just was really making me reflect on the last time I'd been on a kayak with him, which was, I think, in 2010. It's been a long time. You know, when you've got young children, it's kind of hard to kayak, but we left them home with the grandparents yesterday, and so yeah, they were happy playing Roblox, whatever it is they were doing, whilst we were out kayaking, out and about. So we are on holiday this week. We are in Muddyford in where is it? Christchurch in Dorset, and it's lovely. As we were walking today, I saw a sign that said something along the lines of Christchurch, where time is pleasant. And me and my husband were like, time is pleasant? Is pleasant really a word that we use when things are really, really good, or is it when things are like fine? But yes, if I was trying to decide whether if I lived here and this was the view from my window, whether I'd be super, super productive because I'd always want to sit at my desk, or whether I would just end up laying down on the sofa with a similarly glorious view and not get very much done at all. So as I do sit here, I think, if I wrote a book here, it would be just a lovely, lovely view. So when I was writing the Aspiring Psychologist Collective and doing the editing for that, I went away for a weekend with my friends, and before they arrived, I sat and overlooked the most beautiful Malvern Hills view, and that was really inspiring. So I'm all about the view, and that's one of my top tips really is, if you are feeling a bit bogged down by life and the views around you, then could you get out and about, to even have a day of looking at something a little bit more awe-inspiring. So I wrote a piece for the media a while ago that suggested that when we're seeing and experiencing awe-inducing things, that we have a better quality of life. So where could you look in your life to even have low cost awe? So it might be going to a forest, with really big tall trees, where you can kind of just appreciate the difference in size and how long it would have taken for those trees to grow so tall. Or it might be going out to see some water, big strong winds today. I definitely wouldn't have been kayaking today, although my little boy did want to go kayaking. We thought it was not quite that safe. You'll be pleased to know our favourite windsurfer is back. Let me see if I can show you. There he is. So he obviously took a little bit of a break. We went and had some hot chocolate and warmed up. Another lovely comforting thing that you can also do. So for those of you listening, what I'm doing is I'm showing a lovely man on his white and blue what is it? A water surfer, is it? Windsurfer. So as he whips about now, I'm sure he will distract me in the most wonderful of ways. But yeah, I went windsurfing in 2010. It was very, very difficult. I went on one of those Nielsen holidays, had an absolutely brilliant time. So that was when I was just about starting my 3rd year of doctoral training. So yeah, very, very much recommend going out and doing some active things if you can, to help you get through whatever you've got going on in your life now. But it's really important that we are living some of our best life, ideally, even when we're waiting to kind of get to where you think might be the good stuff, where all the good stuff happens. We need to be enjoying life along the way too. One of my next top tips is when you get a new diary for the year. This is mine. I favour an A4 diary, I like lots of room, is to think about best case scenario. And if you could get all of your choice of annual leave, what would you want? And make sure that you are ideally booking it if you're part of a team, or if you are self-employed like me, that you're just taking it out of there as not available for bookings, because it's really, really nice actually when you are doing client work and you're looking for the next available appointment, and then you flick past annual leave and you think, oh yes, I have got that thing coming up, oh brilliant. So I tend to put all of my social things into my work diary as well, to give me like a little bit of a boost as well. When I'm flicking through the diary, I think, oh yeah, that thing's coming up, oh I'm really looking forward to that, that'll be really good, to help bolster where you're at now. So yeah, that's something you might like to consider. But it's really important to me as a parent that I'm having time with the children when they're on half-term breaks. So even before the half-term holidays and the school term dates get published, what I do is I am earmarking those. I'm looking on the local government website to look for the term times and making sure that where possible I book out as much time as I can to be off with the children during half terms, so that I can have a good break. Sorry about the noise next door. So that I can decompress, because we carry a heavy load in the work that we do, and so making sure that we're able to maximize our time off is really key. Of course, we don't always want to be away from home. Sometimes it's nice just to have downtime, to be at home and to enjoy this space that you've created, and have a little bit of R&R from right where you sit and right where you live. So it's not all about rushing out and spending money, but it's about having time to just relax and to do the things you like to do. Might that be naps? Could be. I absolutely used to love a nap, or just to go out for walks in your local area, or a little bit further afield. You could head to the seaside for a day and have fish and chips. Small pleasures can be very richly rewarding indeed. So don't think that life is suddenly going to become glorious when you're qualified. We need to be working hard to create a life that you're enjoying along the way, and then of course we hope that the same continues when you are qualified. Trying my best to dodge the incredibly noisy noises, but if it goes on for much longer I might just need to plow on through regardless. So yeah, as I said before, this is the second time I've recorded this, and so I think the light is probably more favourable now. It was a little bit sunny earlier, it was in my eyes, but it might mean that we have a slightly shorter podcast episode as well, because I've done it all already. I know where I'm going to go, and also quite keen to go and sit downstairs and have a cup of tea. So get your diary, fill it in, request the leave, and if you're part of a team it might well mean that you've got to negotiate what you're going to have, but it's really important that we're not just saving all our leave until the end of the leave year. Often in the NHS that will run until the end of March, beginning of April, but we don't want you to be having just lots of fallow time in the new year. It's important to try and spread out that leave as much as you can, and I know that bank holidays are likely prorated, and they certainly were when I was in the NHS, but please use your leave not just in one go. Please try to make sure that you're using it to enrich your life, your soul, your spirit, everything about you, so that you're not just totally burned out all the time. And we need to think about the power of evenings and weekends and holiday as well. So it's where I'm being a bad girl because I'm working on my holiday, but I'm choosing to work on my holiday because it matters to me that you guys have a new podcast episode to look forward to each week as well, because I know that many of you have this as part of your weekly routine, and thank you from the bottom of my heart if that does describe you. So yeah, using your evenings and weekends. And when I first got together with my husband, he was like, why don't you have more hobbies? Why do you not do more things? And I was like, well, I like a bit of Pilates, I like chatting with my friends, I like going out for dinner, I like naps. Naps are a key hobby, and if you are lucky enough to still have naps in your life, perhaps you don't yet have children, or you have some magical method of ignoring them so that you can nap, please let me know. Tag me when you've had a really good nap, won't you? Come and talk to me about your naps on the Aspiring Psychologist community on Facebook. I love a good nap. My in-laws are currently asleep right now on the sofa downstairs because they've come along the way with us. That was noisy. That was noisy. That's not them snoring. That's not them snoring. That is the work people next door. So yeah, try to make sure that you've got things to look forward to in your evenings and weekends, but don't over cram them. Just because there's a gap in your social calendar doesn't mean you need to fill it. So I'm trying to adopt the concept of not booking more than 2 things over a week to do, because I'll just be burned out, and it's tricky to do anyway because the children seem to relentlessly have football. I was going to say football rehearsal, football practice and training and actual matches and stuff. So yeah, gone are the days where my weekends are my own anyway. But I was really I enjoy my work, and I did as an aspiring psychologist. So if you're not really enjoying your work as an aspiring psychologist, it might be an idea to reflect on how different you envisage qualified life to be when you get there, because in my experience they're not vastly different. I do more media now, I do obviously write books and things, and I do podcasts, but my day-to-day work isn't that different really. And so, think about where you might be able to crank up the joy perhaps using supervision to think about creating more opportunities within your work to do the things that you really, really do enjoy might be useful. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a short break here, and I'll be back along very soon.
If you're looking to become a psychologist, then let this be your guide, filled with lessons and experience that will help you get qualified. So come and take a look. It's right here in this book. It's the Clinical Psychologist Collective. It's the Clinical Psychologist Collective.
My name is Diakolola Amujo. I am a recent psychology graduate from Ireland. I am also an aspiring clinical psychologist. Dr. Marian's book, The Clinical Psychologist Collective, has been so helpful to me on this journey to becoming a clinical psychologist. As I plan to continue postgraduate studies in the UK, I found it extremely useful that this book provided in-depth information on the UK DclinPsy application process. I enjoyed reading about the experiences of both qualified and trainee clinical psychologists. The various narratives were my favorite part of the book, as everyone's story was different and it provided amazing insights into the clinical psychology journey. I would definitely recommend this book to anyone interested in psychology and aspires to become a clinical psychologist.
To become a psychologist, then let this be your guide, filled with lessons and experience that will help you get qualified. So come and take a look. It's right here in this book. It's the Clinical Psychologist Collective. It's the Clinical Psychologist Collective.
Thank you for coming back to me, and hope you found this first half useful so far. In the first half we were thinking about the blank diary and the power of evenings and weekends. I was also chatting to somebody today, actually, who's gone straight from being an aspiring psychologist and working really long hours with zero downtime and zero annual leave, to go straight to doctoral training, and finding that after teaching block and kind of hustling and jostling to form cohort relationships and expectations from the university, as well as new placement expectations and pressures, both self-imposed and supervisor imposed, finding they're feeling a bit burned out already, which is really, really tricky. And so I really do advocate using your diary to think, well, if I were to get on to doctoral training this year, what could my summer look like? What could I afford to, how long could I afford to potentially not work for? Or could I use some of my annual leave to take before I finish to make sure I have a really enjoyable break? So when I started training, as you might know already, because I talk about it quite a lot, I'd had just the most wonderful summer. I'd been away backpacking with a friend in Spain and Morocco, and then I came back and finished off my work in the service I was working in, and then went away to India for 5 weeks too. And also, I seem to recall, I went to Barcelona with a very big group of assistant psychologists. I think we already knew we were going to be on training at that point, and it was just such fun until I got mugged. But even then, on the other side of that, it was such fun. We had a great time, and so it was just a really wonderful summer. And so I really came to clinical training just energized, enthusiastic, tanned, happy, living my best life. and really excited for this next stage. So where could you imagine or hope or dream that you might spend this summer if this is your summer before you go on to doctoral training? So dare to dream. And just before the first time I recorded this podcast episode, there's a book here just behind me called The Best Moment of Your Life, and it's about 100 stories. It's a bit of a collective, actually. 100 stories written by people who have had, really amazing moments. And one of them, the first story, is actually something that I've already done, which I thought was incredible. So I haven't had a chance to look through it really, but it's about someone who went to Varanasi in India and lit these little candles and then put them out across the Ganges. And you do that with a kind of mindful hope, a connection to people that you've loved and lost, and for your hopes and dreams in future. And so I've done that, and it was like a really nice spiritual thing to do. So that was really nice. That made me reflect upon some of the other really lovely things I've done as well, like going to Australia and driving around the world's largest sand island, which is Fraser Island, and encouraging the dingoes not to steal our barbecue, and pitching a tent and sleeping out there, and sleeping under the stars in the Thar Desert, and riding a camel, which I talk about in the Aspiring Psychologist collective book, and what other things? Hanging out in Thailand and swimming with dusky dolphins in New Zealand, and all of these were things that I've done whilst being an aspiring psychologist, so in chunks of time that I've taken to go out there and see the world, but also nourish my soul, and actually I don't know if I'd be here without doing that, because on the days that are tricky, I've very much drawn on many of those experiences. So how could you do the things that nourish your soul? That might be dancing, it might be singing, it might be traveling, it might be eating great food or cooking great food, or spending time with people you really enjoy spending time with. So how can you look to do that? Because all work and no play makes life not feel very enriching. That was a loud noise. How can you do that as well? And we need to be making sure we're looking forward to things. So having things to look forward to. So for example, comedy gigs. Maybe I was supposed to be going to John Richardson tomorrow, but we had to cancel because it had originally been scheduled for the pandemic, and then it had been rolled forward and moved to a date I couldn't do, so we had to refund it, which was a shame. But I might well look to think what other comedy gigs I can get booked in, trips to see friends, meals in restaurants that I'd like to go to, family I might like to catch up with. I've got a shopping trip with a couple of different friends, university friends, and psychology undergraduate friends. So what can you do that might enrich your life and help decompress, take off some of the pressure from this pressure cooker of life that we get when we are working as a mental health professional, or any kind of role where you're supporting and caring about others. And along those lines, I would say it's really important to use supervision as well, and we could use supervision to look forward as well, and to think about when where you might like to go, and we can also use any yearly appraisal to think about what experiences you might like to have to, shape you and direct you and point you in the direction that you want to go. Don't be afraid to say that you're not thinking this is going to be your forever job. It's absolutely okay to want to go to different places. So perhaps you want to be a senior PWP or a senior assistant psychologist, or perhaps you want to get your first kind of assistant psychologist role, for example, or research assistant role. And I would say, I hope you're in an environment where you're able to be honest about that, and they can help support you to get to this next step of the rung of the ladder, which is going to be so useful for you. So this is a slightly briefer episode than it was originally. think we came in at about 29 minutes before, but there was more distraction available with more windsurfing discussion opportunities. We've had more of a focus. The last episode was a little bit woolly and a little bit too relaxed, whereas now I was slightly annoyed when I started this because I can't believe I filmed an entire podcast and there was no sound, and I checked it and everything. But yes, I came and did a redo, and if there's no sound this time, then frankly you're just going to have to listen to no sound and to try and work out what I was saying. But yeah, I've done away with the AirPods, and you might have slightly worse sound and also quite a lot of noise to put up with, and you might be able to hear buffeting wind as I sit here in this office room looking out at the wonderful estuary views. So yeah, if you found this useful, then please come and discuss it with me on socials. Tell me about your naps as well. I'm very excited by naps, even when they're not my own. And talk to me about your hobbies and your pastimes. Come and discuss it with me on the Aspiring Psychologist community (free group) that's on Facebook. If you would welcome some more support, then come along to the Aspiring Psychologist membership. Details in the show notes. And also, the day this episode is released is Halloween, the 31st of October. And so we've got a live Q&A, compassionate Q&A across my socials as well. Do bear in mind, if you're joining on Twitter, that I can't see your comments live. So perhaps come along, Dr. Marianne Trent, and most other places, but also on Facebook for Good Thinking Psychological Services too. Come and see me. Ask me questions, let me answer them for you, and bearing in mind there's a competition running until midnight on the 31st of October as well. More details for how you can win a one-to-one with me are available to you at www.goodthinkingpsychology.co.uk/my-books. And you can see all the details there that you need to know. But yes, thank you for joining me. I'm going to go and hope there's some sound on this episode. Maybe see if I can get a little bit of a glass of wine on the go. Maybe it's a little bit of a random Wednesday afternoon off work. Look forward to the fish and chips that we're having for tea tonight, which I seem to be aware I've got rather good reviews from the local chippy. So yes, I hope you found this useful. I hope you found it inspiring. Give yourself permission to allow yourself to do the things that make you smile and enrich your soul, because it's going to be so important along the journey. Hope you found it useful. Thank you for being part of my world, and I'll look forward to catching up with you for our next episode, which is available to you from 6 a.m. on Monday. Take care.
If you're looking to become a psychologist, then let this be your guide. With this podcast